What if the most humiliating rejection Meghan Markle allegedly faced in Hollywood wasn't a screaming match, a leaked text, or a public feud, but a jar of jam that reportedly never even made it past the front door? According to claims circulating online, Jennifer Aniston wasn't interested in the friendship, the invitations, the wellness gifts, or the podcast connection allegedly being offered. And if even part of that story is true, the message was brutally simple. No access, no alliance, no Hollywood fairy tale. But here's where this gets even more explosive, because the real controversy isn't the jam. It's what the alleged rejection appears to represent.
Jennifer Aniston, who became famous in the TV series Friends, doesn't want a friendship.
She thinks that she's going to get famous by association, and she's not. And Jennifer Aniston she's not.
Protected the fellow actress in the most mortifying manner after moving.
Tempered jam. That's gonna be the title to this video. That doesn't look like Meghan's. That doesn't. No.
Meghan Markle and Gwyneth Paltrow are setting the record straight after rumors of a potential feud between the pair started brewing.
Caved, so disappointed because now she's going to get Markled. It's happened to everyone.
And wants nothing to do with the drama she creates around herself and with the royal family.
And it has opened a few more doors for her, but she's still finding a lot of doors slammed in her face. Kerry Washington's the perfect.
It's clever the way that Gwyneth has done it, and I'll get a little bit in depth in just one moment.
Jennifer Aniston moving to Montecito should have been nothing more than another celebrity real estate story. Another famous name choosing sunshine, privacy, luxury, and distance from the madness of Hollywood. But suddenly, according to the reports behind this controversy, her arrival became something far more interesting. Meghan Markle allegedly saw the move as an opportunity, not just a chance to wave at a famous neighbor across the street, but an opening into the world of one of America's most recognizable actresses. And this is where the story becomes deliciously awkward. The claims say gifts began appearing, including artisanal jam and luxury wellness products, while invitations and the possibility of a podcast appearance were allegedly placed into the mix. On paper, it sounds harmless. Celebrities send gifts. Neighbors meet. People make introductions. Nothing unusual, except the alleged reaction attributed to Aniston was anything but enthusiastic. According to the reports, the gifts were not embraced, the invitations allegedly went unanswered, and the supposed friendship never materialized. The most sensational part of the story is the claim that Aniston privately viewed Meghan in extremely negative terms. That allegation has never been publicly confirmed by Aniston, but it became the phrase that turned an ordinary celebrity rumor into a full-blown gossip headline.
She doesn't want her jam. Meghan Markle awkwardly love-bombing Jennifer Aniston with cringy gifts and invites.
The reports claim that Meghan's outreach allegedly became more persistent after Aniston's move. First came the gifts, then messages, then invitations, with the podcast possibility supposedly sitting behind the entire effort. Whether every detail is accurate or not, the narrative being pushed was clear. Meghan allegedly wanted a relationship with Aniston, while Aniston allegedly wanted distance. And that contrast is what makes this story so irresistible, because Jennifer Aniston isn't some unknown Hollywood newcomer desperate for another celebrity connection. She has spent decades building a career and reputation that can stand entirely on its own. She doesn't need another famous person to make her relevant. She doesn't need someone else's platform to validate her. And that completely changes the power dynamic. If Meghan really was hoping that geographical proximity would finally create the friendship she wanted, then Montecito may have delivered the exact opposite result. Instead of opening a door, it allegedly exposed the boundary. And then there is the choice of the gift itself. The jam was closely associated with Meghan's lifestyle branding and the wholesome handcrafted image surrounding it. That makes the alleged gesture more interesting because it wasn't simply flowers picked up at a supermarket. It was connected to the identity Meghan has been building around herself. And that is precisely why the alleged refusal became such a juicy Hollywood story. But there is an important line we cannot ignore. Jennifer Aniston herself has not publicly confirmed that she threw Meghan's gifts in the bin, nor has she publicly confirmed calling Meghan poisonous. Those are allegations and reported claims, not established facts. Yet the story continued because the silence itself became part of the narrative. That is the strange power of celebrity rejection. A public refusal can be explained. A private silence can be interpreted 100 different ways. And when two famous women are involved, every unanswered invitation suddenly looks suspicious. Every missing photograph becomes evidence to gossip pages, and every polite slight distance gets transformed into a supposed secret feud. But there is another reason this particular story gained traction. Jennifer Aniston has already spent decades dealing with the brutal machinery of celebrity culture. Her relationships have been analyzed, her friendships dissected, her personal life turned into headlines, and her every public appearance examined for clues. She knows exactly what happens when your name becomes attached to another person's controversy. So if Aniston really did decide to keep her distance, the most logical explanation may be much simpler than the conspiracy. She may simply have decided she didn't want another headline attached to her name. And that possibility is almost more interesting than the rumor itself, because Hollywood operates on proximity. Who you know, who you sit beside, who appears on your podcast, who photographs you at dinner, who gets invited into your circle. One appearance can create an entire narrative that lasts for years, and Jennifer Aniston would know that better than almost anyone, which is why the alleged jam rejection suddenly looks less like a petty celebrity snub and more like a boundary, a very carefully maintained boundary. And then the story gets even more complicated, because Meghan's alleged pursuit of high-profile relationships has become a recurring subject of public commentary. Critics have pointed towards successful entrepreneurs, celebrities and media personalities who have appeared around Meghan's projects, arguing that these connections provide visibility and credibility. But calling every celebrity friendship a calculated transaction would be unfair. People can genuinely connect, collaborate, and support one another without some hidden strategy. The real question is whether the relationships survive when the cameras disappear. Just distance. And in Hollywood, distance can sometimes say more than words. If Meghan expected Montecito to become a shortcut into Jennifer Aniston's inner circle, the alleged response appears to have been a cold reminder that proximity doesn't equal access. You can live nearby without being invited inside. You can send a gift without creating a friendship. You can offer a podcast without getting a microphone opposite one of the biggest stars in the world. And that is why the jam has become the perfect symbol for this entire controversy. And this is where the story takes another turn, because Jennifer Aniston was not the only Hollywood name pulled into the wider conversation surrounding Meghan Markle. The original controversy quickly became connected to a much bigger question about celebrity friendships, public associations, and the strange pressure that comes with being attached to a royal adjacent figure. The story surrounding Gwyneth Paltrow became particularly revealing because it demonstrated how quickly an alleged casual association can become a permanent part of someone's public identity. Paltrow had her own career, her own audience, and her own enormous business empire, yet once her name became linked publicly with Meghan, the connection itself became a recurring subject of speculation. That is precisely the kind of situation Jennifer Aniston would have every reason to avoid. A simple photograph, a podcast appearance, or even one friendly public interaction could create a narrative that neither person completely controls afterward. Suddenly, journalists ask about the friendship. Commentators analyze every interaction. Fans compare personalities. Royal watchers drag the relationship into conversations about Prince Harry, the British royal family, and the continuing controversy surrounding Meghan Markle. What begins as a private social connection can become a permanent headline. And then there is Jessica Mulroney, whose history with Meghan became another major part of the argument presented by critics. Jessica Mulroney was once considered one of Meghan's closest friends, with her children playing prominent roles during the royal wedding. Their friendship appeared deeply established, personal, and genuine. Yet after Jessica became involved in a public controversy, the relationship changed dramatically in the public eye. Critics interpreted the distance as evidence that Meghan's friendships were dependent on circumstances, while supporters could argue that anyone has the right to reconsider a friendship when circumstances become complicated. The truth is more complicated than the gossip version, but the perception itself became powerful. That perception is exactly what makes the Jennifer Aniston story so combustible. If Aniston truly decided that she wanted no involvement, she wouldn't have needed a dramatic confrontation. She wouldn't have needed to publicly embarrass Meghan. Silence would have been enough. In fact, silence may have been the smartest possible response because it left no photograph, no quote, and no public exchange that could later be transformed into a larger narrative. Meanwhile, Meghan's public relationship with privacy has also become a major subject of criticism. For years, privacy was central to her public arguments about the press and royal life. Yet over time, Meghan and Prince Harry have shared increasingly personal stories through interviews, documentaries, podcasts, and other carefully selected platforms. Supporters call that reclaiming control over their own story. Critics call it selective disclosure. Either way, the contradiction has become part of the public debate. The same pattern appears whenever the conversation turns toward the royal family. The controversy surrounding Lilibet and the question of whether the late queen had explicitly approved the use of her her childhood nickname, became another example of how one disputed detail can explode into a much larger argument. The palace position and the Sussexes' account were presented differently, leaving years of speculation behind them. The disagreement became symbolic of the larger breakdown in trust between the two sides. And while that drama continued, Prince William took an entirely different approach. Rather than feeding speculation, he focused publicly on his responsibilities and the Duchy of Cornwall. His emphasis on communities, tenants, and practical work created a striking contrast with the endless cycle of revelations surrounding his brother and sister-in-law. He didn't need to address every controversy. He didn't need to answer every accusation. His silence allowed the work itself to become the story. That contrast is important because it brings the Jennifer Aniston controversy back into focus. In a celebrity culture built around visibility, sometimes the most powerful move is refusing to participate. No dramatic statement, no carefully staged reconciliation, no public friendship designed for cameras, just a boundary. And if the allegations about Meghan's jam outreach were exaggerated, then perhaps the real lesson is even simpler. Celebrity gossip can turn ordinary interactions into elaborate narratives almost overnight. But if Jennifer Aniston genuinely chose to keep her distance, then the message remains unmistakable. A famous name cannot be forced into a friendship simply because the opportunity appears convenient. The jar of jam may have started the story, but the real controversy is about access, reputation, and control. Meghan Markle may have wanted a connection with Jennifer Aniston, but Jennifer Aniston ultimately had the power to decide whether that connection existed. And if the alleged answer was no, then no amount of gifts, invitations, or podcast possibilities could change it. Sometimes Hollywood's coldest response isn't an insult. It is simply an unanswered invitation.